Okay, so Sketchnotes, there's no wrong way to do it. I would suggest your boxes. It's going to go in order like a cartoon, and you may need the back of the page, and you will get to use this on the test for this unit. So I have this video, and I'm going to stop it and tell you what's going on, and then you can draw the scene or the symbols. You can use words. So let's get to it. Gilgamesh is the first superhero story that was written on clay tablets thousands of years ago because they didn't really have words back then, so they used like emojis. And there were tablets and tablets and tablets and tablets of this story, and it references things from the Bible, things from history, other stuff going on in that area, because Gilgamesh is set in Iraq and Syria, the Middle East, which was Mesopotamia at the time. And I'm going to put the characters across the board here because there's a lot of people and a lot of them will die. So your first character is Gilgamesh, and he is some kind of king. So if you want to draw some kind of king symbol, or on a throne, or some guy that has like a scepter or a sword or something kingly, yeah, you can draw that in the box because Gilgamesh is our main guy. Most superhero stories have somebody who has some kind of special powers or special situation. There's going to be a series of things that go wrong. Then they're going to have some kind of resolution. They learn a lesson, and the story wraps up. And lots of things in this story appear in other works of art that we've had so far. So for the first couple minutes of this video, he's just kind of explaining the overall story, and then we'll get into the actual drawing.
Hi, I'm Mike Rignetta. This is Crash Course Mythology, and today we're returning to one of the world's favorite texts, the Epic of Gilgamesh. This is one of the oldest written stories in the world, and it's a great illustration of Joseph Campbell's monomythic hero's journey introduced last episode. Plus, it has sacred trees, love-struck goddesses, and a fearsome demon named Humbaba. To Sumeria. The Epic of Gilgamesh is more than 4,000 years old. Written versions of the story date back to 2100 BCE, which gives it incredible historical value. For instance, several versions of the Gilgamesh story use both Sumerian and Akkadian names for gods, which shows how the story might have passed orally between the cultures of ancient Mesopotamia. This could also be considered syncretism, when two religious traditions combine over time. In this episode, we're going to work from a version of the epic written around 1200 BCE and see how Gilgamesh himself fits into the hero's journey. A fair bit of warning though, in this story there is a brief mention of rape. At the start of our tale, Gilgamesh is the king of Uruk, and he's both a bad guy and a bad king. His subjects are unhappy, he disrespects the gods, and he's a serial rapist. So basically, he's the opposite of a hero. But
So right now, you have a king who's done bad things to his subjects because he's a king with no limits on his power because of divine right. So there was part of the story is that he would take all the brides on their wedding night and get them first, which, because he was special, now that's rape because you're forcing them to do something with you. And people are mad, they can't say anything because he's a king, and so he could do stuff to them. So he is already a bad guy, and we're going to find out he's half human, half god. Kind of like Aquaman.
Gilgamesh, like many heroes, has divine parentage, a goddess mom and a human king dad. Somehow this makes him 2/3 god and 1/3 man. Try not to think too hard about the
So, daddy's a human, Earth daddy, and mom is a goddess. You can. So, dad's a human, mom's a goddess, so that makes him have some kind of special powers, but he is human, and that's going to be a theme through the rest of the story about being human versus being a god. So he's a demigod. He's like Aquaman. Mommy's got powers, daddy was just a dude on Earth. And the next character that's going to appear is going to become his best friend, but they don't start off that way.
math on that one, but either way, he's still mortal, and that's hard for him to accept. Eventually, Gilgamesh has a number of crazy adventures. He chops down some famous trees and meets his best friend Enkidu, who helps Gilgamesh become a better man and a better king.
So Inkadoo is the guy who's going to be the next character. Inkadoo.
But it's not like a Teletubby character.
I don't know. Inkadoo is kind of a wild feral character that's grown up in the woods and is kind of part human. And so when they meet in a dark wooded area, they're going to battle and have a wrestling match, because that's what dudes do when you cross territory paths. Somebody's got to have a battle. But like men, they're going to fight it out and then become best friends, because men can punch each other and then be friends. Women don't. They'll hold on to that anger for years and years and years. So this was true thousands of years ago about how humans behave. So you're going to end up drawing a battle scene, wrestling between these two characters.
When Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh goes to the underworld to try to bring him back. He fails, however, and then must admit that he's human after all. In the end, Gilgamesh is considered a hero, not just for his incredible deeds, but for coming to understand and accept his true nature. But okay, let's backtrack, because along the way, Gilgamesh manages to check off nearly every single heroic scene that we learned about in the last episode.
So most stories have a setting. You get the characters, then things happen that are good or bad that make the characters, maybe they aren't successful or someone's going to die. There's going to be some kind of conflict. And it grows and grows and grows until there's a resolution, and then they learn something and move on, like most superheroes. So he's going to go, you don't need to know all these, but most stories have, someone comes in and gives them advice. Somebody, has powers, has resources. They got to meet a challenge. They got to overcome something. And this story is going to have all of that. And it's one of the first ones to do that.
We're going to count them up one by one, play along from home. Every time you see a heroic scene, shout it out. But, I'm pretty far away, so just make sure that you shout like really, really loudly. So things get started in the epic when Gilgamesh and Enkidu first meet. Right away, they decide to wrestle each other.
So this is a different time, so things are going to be drawn almost atomically. But you basically have a demigod is going to fight some kind of feral beast in the woods, and then they're going to become best friends. So they are, a mixed pair. And they're going to battle, so you're going to do some kind of wrestling scene with some kind of king and some kind of weird thing battling it out.
And realizing that they're evenly matched, they reach a stalemate. This is a heroic trope in its own right, just not one of Campbell's. Think Robin Hood and Little John, Arthur and Lancelot, or Vin Diesel and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Fast 5. After dusting themselves off and becoming BFFs, Gilgamesh and Enkidu return to Uruk to do kingly stuff. But Enkidu, who's used to living in the wilderness, he gets bored. Gilgamesh proposes that they head to the forest and face off against a terrifying demon adversary, Humbaba.
So you're going to draw a dark and scary woods. There's going to be a creature in there, and they're going to do a challenge to this beast. So it's kind of like when the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy has to go through the dark wood to get to the person she's looking for in the end, which is a wizard. You have Little Red Riding Hood has to get through the dark woods, and the wolf isn't supposed to get her. So this concept of something dark and scary, like the Valley of the Shadow of Death that's referenced in the Bible, this is where this kind of started. Enkidu and Gilgamesh are going to fight this new character called Baba. And depending on which version of the story you read, he might be part lion, part snake, part something that flies. He's kind of a mishmash of species, huh? You can make him some kind of scary thing. He's kind of like the guardian of this dark forest. And because men like to battle for territory, they're going to take on Humbaba like a challenge. Now they're going to win, and then they're going to brag about it. So, spoiler alert, Humbaba's going to get decapitated. So you're going to draw that next.
Yeah, it's not a very threatening name, I know, but trust me, he's a big deal, very terrifying. But did you see what happened? This is what Campbell would call the announcement of the quest. To prep for the journey, Gilgamesh and Enkidu get supernatural aid in the form of some special weaponry. Then they have a quick refusal of the quest as Enkidu, who knows the power of Humbaba, tries to warn Gilgamesh. Humbaba, whose shout is the flood weapon, whose utterance is fire, and whose breath is death, can hear for a distance of 60 leagues through the forest. So who can penetrate his forest? Debility would seize anyone who penetrated his forest. But Gilgamesh persists. Gilgamesh and Enkidu meet the goddess, Gilgamesh's mom, Ninsun. She's not particularly happy with her son's plan, but she blesses Gilgamesh and adopts Enkidu. In the forest...
So here's where the family gets messy. Mommy's a goddess. Mommy has special powers. Gilgamesh knows to take on this character here, he's going to need some kind of weaponry, because you never go into the battles of any kind of video game without being armed, right? So he needs some help. Mommy's going to give him some special stuff, and she's going to say this is a bad idea, but because he's a king and he gets what he wants, she blesses him to go do it anyway. Enkidu, being the best friend, being supportive, he tries not to be feral and wild, tells Gilgamesh, this is a bad idea, man, but I'm your friend, I'm going to support you. And for whatever reason, Mommy now adopts Inkadoo, and Inkadoo is an adopted brother. So now they got a tight bond. So they're going to go into this next quest to kill Humbaba, and they're going to win. And then they're going to brag about it.
Forest, Enkidu warns Gilgamesh about its gates, saying how afraid he is to cross the threshold. But once again, Gilgamesh persists, and the two venture forth into the darkness of the forest, now deep in the belly of the whale.
You've heard the term belly of the whale from Jonah and the whale from a Bible story about going into the deep, dark, secret place of an opponent. And so that's what they're going to do. They're going to go into this forest, and they're going to go and kill Humbaba. And the way they kill him is they're going to decapitate him, because we consider most people's power to be in their head, where their personality and all their brain is. So they're going to take the head as a trophy and carry around his bloody skull. You're
And we're going to follow them right in. Thought bubble, take us in there.
So these next few images should help you get your pictures together so far, that you have two best friends, they're going to the dark forest, they're going to beat an opponent, they're going to take the head, and then they have to get back home. And the fact that they need to cut down the trees from this guy's forest that they just killed means they didn't replant trees because they were plentiful. And this is set in what is now desert. Back then there was more water. So wood is valuable. So they're going to chop down the wood, make a raft, and carry the bloody face back home.
Creeping through the pine forest, Enkidu and Gilgamesh prepare to confront Humbaba. Before long, the earth shakes and the sky goes dark. Humbaba is upon them. Humbaba is massive, with the face of a lion, or scales, or vulture feet, or a snake tail, depending upon which version you read. But nonetheless, very fearsome. Undeterred, Gilgamesh and Enkidu leap into battle. With supernatural aid from the god Shamash and some divine winds that bind Humbaba, Gilgamesh slays the demon and removes its head. If you're keeping score at home, this step is technically atonement with the father. Humbaba can be read as a terrible, overbearing father figure that must be, well, not so much atoned with as, beheaded. After the glory...
So atonement with the father is kind of like you don't have the best relationship with your father, and so you've got to do something to prove you're valuable. Like Ariel in the Mermaid, she has to go prove her dad that she can, be out in the ocean and not have bad things happen to her. And so now Humbaba is gone. Humbaba died. This list is going to get long, and I'm going to cross other people off. So now they got to take their trophy, go back home, and brag about it.
In the previous battle, Gilgamesh and Enkidu fell a bunch of sacred trees, build a raft, and sail home with Humbaba's noggin. Once home, Gilgamesh takes a bath and puts on some royal robes in anticipation of his meeting with a goddess.
Now, the new character, when he comes home, he's going to have a visitor by a goddess, and all the women in this story are basically goddesses who have superpowers, who are going to give Gilgamesh advice that he never really takes, because Sometimes men don't take women's advice. So this new character is Ishtar. She's the goddess of love. Ishtar also has a super thing for Gilgamesh and wants to have his babies. And she's going to flat out ask him to. He wants nothing to do with her.
Holy Jerry Springer.
Jerry Springer. And Inkadoo, being the best friend who always supports Gilgamesh no matter what, backs up Gilgamesh when he says, hit the road, I don't want you. And he's going to make the woman mad. When you make a woman mad, who's a goddess, she's going to come back and do something violent and make you regret it. And she's going to send a bull down to kill him. A bull with wings, but not Red Bull.
In this case, the goddess is Ishtar, who definitely has a thing for Gilgamesh. She says, come to me, Gilgamesh, and be my lover. Bestow upon me the gift of your fruit. You can be my husband, and I can be your wife. Gilgamesh refuses Ishtar's advances, though. Maybe he just wasn't ready to share his fruit, which makes this scene woman as temptress. Insulted, Ishtar sends the bull of heaven to kill Gilgamesh.
So now there's a bull.
Okay, that's tough.
Control that.
Who's that guy? Wait, who's Sean Kemp again? Who's Ishtar?
The Ishtar wants Gilgamesh. He's king, right? He's got power. That's who you want to hook up with. But he doesn't want no part of her. And Inkadoo is supportive of his friend and says, nope, he doesn't want you, back off. But she's going to be angry, so she's going to send this bull to kill both of them. But coming off their victory of killing Humbaba, they're pretty confident, and they're going to kill this one too. But Inkadoo has a little bit of feralness in him. He's going to take the insult one step further, rip off a lave, and slap this goddess in the face, which isn't going to go over well. Now, she's so mad, she's going to kill him. So Gilgamesh's actions have gotten his best friend killed.
No!
So the bull's going to die, and Inkadoo is going to die.
Why do you have to tell him
I can't answer that right now.
Who, with Inkadoo, kills the bull. But Inkadoo, who just does not know when to quit, slaps Ishtar with a chunk of said bull. Not smart, friendo. And with that beefy slap, Inkadoo seals his fate. The life drains from his body, he gets sicker and sicker, and dies. Thank you, Thought Bubble. With Inkadoo dead, Gilgamesh was at a turning point. He thought he'd finished his hero's journey. After traveling to the ends of the earth, defeating his dad, and returning home with a gross, bloody trophy, he put on robes. He was done. But now, with the loss of his best friend, Gilgamesh feels yet another call to adventure. So he leaves Uruk to roam the country, wondering, shall I die too? Am I not like Enkidu? Grief has entered my innermost being. I am afraid of death, and so I roam open country. Gilgamesh is on another heroic quest.
So now, he has had his actions ended up with his best friend's death, and now one of his concerns is he a god or is he human? Because if Inkadoo can die, he might be able to die, and now he's depressed, and depressed people don't make good decisions. So now he's going to become obsessed with not dying, because remember, he is half human. And so the whole rest of the story is him trying not to die. But he's trying to look for immortality like it's a gift, and he's going to fail and fail and fail trying to get it. So now he's depressed, and is he a god or human? He realizes he's got more human daddy than anything, and he wants immortality, and he's going to try to get it. But like most video games, when you need the big prize at the end, you've got to go through some levels of challenges first to prove you're worthy.
And beat the boss.
And beat the boss. But Gilgamesh is going to fail over and over, partly because he's not so great of a guy.
This time to overcome death and live eternally. he resolves to find Utnapishtim, who you might remember from a previous episode.
So the new character, Utnapishtim.
I need this new guy. I need
Oot.
to do that. Who needs this new guy? I need
Utnapishtim is kind of somebody who survived something where they should have died. So Gilgamesh thinks maybe he has the answer to immortality because he's cheated death once. And the way this character is described is kind of like Noah and Noah's Ark, because he survived some kind of flood. So there's reference to other Bible stuff going on in this story. And he's going to go to him to try to get the secret to immortality. So he's got to make it to
He's the
this
dude
guy's
who was
place.
granted immortality after surviving the Great Flood. Along the way, Gilgamesh crosses the mountains that guard the rising and setting sun and confronts monstrous scorpion men. Crossing the mountains means another crossing the threshold, and crossing this threshold means Gilgamesh is in the belly of yet another whale, walking through 10 leagues of darkness. Eventually, stumbling through the dark, Gilgamesh has another meeting with the goddess. This time it's Siduri, the goddess of beer and wisdom.
So now there's a new goddess who's going to give him some help. Siduri, she's the goddess of beer and wisdom. Those don't go together, ever. She's going to give him a beer, listen to his problems, and give him some solutions, kind of like a bartender, like a friend who gives help. And he's not totally going to listen to her, but she tells him there's another person you need to go to because you need some other special weapon from someone else to get to this level. Kind of like when you realize you have to go get like a secret coin or secret sword or something. She's just pictured as a general goddess. But she doesn't get slapped, so she doesn't take it out on him. Oh no.
Dang it, why do you have to do all Inkadoo?
What have you achieved? You have made yourself weary for lack of sleep. You only fill your flesh with grief. You only bring the distant days of reckoning closer. Mankind's fame is cut down like reeds in a reed bed. Nobody sees the face of death. Nobody hears the voice of death. Savage death just cuts mankind down. This isn't exactly the answer Gilgamesh was. So
she tells him, you need to go see this other guy. And this other guy tells him, why are you trying to be immortal? You're human and you're going to die, and it's going to come for everybody at some point. So this is
Is your phone working?
Yeah, but I'm in the middle of a video.
Oh, okay. They need Emily down in the office.
Which one?
That's a great question.
I have like 4 Emily's, Emma's, and Emmelines in this class.
They just told me Emily, so.
Bye, Emily. Number 1.
Okay, so Urshanavi has something that Gilgamesh needs to take to this other guy to get immortality. But this guy is in a hard to reach place. And so it's going to take a journey to get there. So he's got to cross some kind of water. So draw dark, scary water in a faraway place. Because Urshanavi is not in a convenient place because he has something valuable. And Gilgamesh, because he doesn't have good social skills, is going to kill the guy he needs and kind of mess up this task.
So he just completely murders the guy without asking any questions?
He pretty much goes and hits him in the head, knocks him out, but he needed the stuff. And he destroys the stuff that he needed, the stones, to get back home. So
he can't get home anymore?
He's got to figure out another way because he messed up the task to go to this person and get what he needed because he killed the person who's going to help him. He destroyed the stuff he was going to need. So now he's got to figure out another solution to get back home because he keeps messing up.
Maybe he left a bull alive inside the building.
But if he wasn't a king who got to, he had no checks on his behavior, so now he doesn't relate well to people. So he's not a good king. He's not a good guy.
Is this other goddess going to jump him or something?
I was hoping for.
Nope, Urshanavi's going
Is
to die.
Utnapishtim just going to turn him away? Is he doomed to remain mortal? Gilgamesh persists, So Utnapishtim tells him his own story about the flood being chosen by Ea, the gods granting him immortality. And this is a revelation to Gilgamesh, the truth of immortality, and it serves as his apotheosis. Utnapishtim decides if Gilgamesh really wants to be immortal, fine.
Okay, so he's killed by now. He's killed off Urshanavi. He did.
Isn't that the one guy needed?
The one guy he needed. So now he's stuck on this faraway watery area. So now he's destroyed what he needed. So now he's got to figure out another way home. So he chops down some trees and makes stilts to get over the water. So you need to draw stilts.
Dang it.
Because that's his solution to get back home.
What's his face look like? The guy that
Oh, he wasn't described as colorful as Humbaba. So draw some stilts over water, because this is a risky journey in the first place. And because he failed his quest, failure 1, he's got to go back to Utnapishtim and say, I still want to be immortal, but I messed up. Give me another chance. And he's going to give him chance number 2. And chance number 2 is to stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights. And it ain't going to happen, because humans can't stay that awake like that without drugs.
But to prove his worth, he has to complete a road of trials with just one simple task. Gilgamesh must stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights. No problem, Gilgamesh says. Easy, he snorts. He plops down on a rock, and having walked into the darkness for over 10 leagues, instantly falls asleep. Whoops! Even though Gilgamesh failed his test, Utnapishtim gives him an out. If he really wants to avoid death, there's a secret plant, a root like a camel thorn. If he can track it down, it'll bring him great rejuvenation.
So he fell asleep, so you need to draw something about that, because that was his challenge, and he didn't do it. That would be challenge 2. So he fell asleep because he sat down and rested, because he's still human. He's got Earth Daddy genes. He's still human. Humans have to sleep. So he's going to go back again to this guy and say, really, I messed up. I want another chance, number 3. And he tells him, okay, fine. There's a plant underneath the water. You're going to have to get it. And it's called, it's supposed to rejuvenate you. So this relates to the fountain of youth and humans' obsession with trying to stay young and try to stay beautiful and not die and not age and not get sick. And so he's going to try to find this plant, which is also underwater, which means there's a risk because you could drown getting it. And he is going to get the plant, but he's going to mess up again because he's going to do something human-like.
This will be his ultimate boon. So, does Gilgamesh get his magic plant? Yes and no. He manages to find it growing deep underwater, and by tying stones to his feet, manages to sink down, snip a sample, and float back up to the surface.
So you got to draw some about water and a plant underneath there. And because it's hard to get to the bottom, he had to have some kind of weights, which is kind of how I described if you were going to dive into the Dead Sea because of the high salt content, you'd float. You would need weights to get down, which references this sea in the area where this takes place. So he's going to go underwater, get this plant. He's got it in his hand. If he could just be successful this time. So now he's got his plant, but he's going to fail a 3rd time.
After this, he sets off for his great return to civilization. But after all that, on his way home, boon in hand, Gilgamesh decides that he should stop and take a bath. While he's soaking, a snake slithers up, sneaks behind him, curls around the plant, and disappears.
So a sneaky snake comes up and steals the plant. So draw a sneaky snake, because snakes are used in stories as something cunning, something scary and sneaky, and is going to, trick you the second they get a chance. The snake stole the plant. And Inkadoo is going to be super, super sad that he's failed 3 times.
Utnapishtim better give him one more thing.
3 strikes and you're out, right? Baseball? That's what's going to happen. So now, he's going to be sad that Sneaky Steak took his last chance at immortality. And now he's going to have some kind of reckoning.
As he towels himself off, he sees the plant is gone and is just defeated. He sits down and weeps.
So, draw tears. Gilgamesh crying. Big old sobbing king.
How old is he in that picture? Like 30?
Huh?
Did he only cut part of the plant?
He just grabbed one.
And why can't he go back and remove?
I don't know. He's down on his luck now. He's about as broken as a human man can be. And now Utnapishtim is going to have to explain to Gilgamesh what it means to be human, and he's going to have some sort of epiphany or revelation about changing his view on the world.
Gilgamesh must return home empty-handed. So, what is heroism? Gilgamesh is a mighty warrior who stands up to terrible monsters and discovers the secret of immortality, but who ultimately fails in his quest. Over the course of the story, he has almost all the experiences set forth in Campbell's monomyth, sometimes more than once. But is this what makes him a hero? Really, Gilgamesh is kind of an ambivalent figure. His journey has many successes, but also many failures. His bravery, or lack of respect, allows him to challenge and kill Humbaba, but also gets Inkadoo killed. He proudly announces that he's up to Utnapishtim's challenge, but he simply isn't. At the end of the epic, Gilgamesh comes to terms with his limitations as a human.
So, somewhere on your drawings, you need to write, is the immortality versus having a good life. He spent all this time trying to be immortal. He kept failing and failing and failing. And the fact that he kept failing goes back to humans make mistakes. And so now he realizes, is immortality even worth it? How many times could he keep doing these tasks before Utnapishtim's like, no, you're done. 3 strikes, you're out. So now he's going to try to think about, what is a hero? Is it someone who keeps trying even if they mess up? Or is it one who has successes after another? Because you can't have both. You can't have a string of successes and never have anything mess up if you're human. If you're God, maybe. But humans, no. So is it trying or success? And he realizes that maybe trying to be good is just as valuable, if not more, and that maybe he's made a lot of bad choices and he could be a better king while he's here, because obviously he's going to die. He's got some human in him, and he has this whole change of philosophy.
This completes the journey, achieving the final crucial step, having the power and wisdom to live a good life. Not an eternal life, but a good one. In Gilgamesh's case, that means one where you aren't a terrible king. Ava Thury and Margaret Deviney sum up Gilgamesh's heroism pretty well. Gilgamesh wants to escape human limitations, to get answers to questions not available to his contemporaries, and perhaps most importantly, he wants to overcome mortality, both for himself and others. But ultimately, his story shows us that despite his extraordinary talents, in these matters he is not different from other humans. Thus, we see that it is precisely his human limitations that make him truly heroic. So, is he perfect? No. Is he even a role model? Definitely not. But can he serve as a symbol for an aspect of the human condition, of growing past mistakes and accepting limitations? Maybe. And perhaps that is what makes him a hero. Next.
So the story, the summary of the story is, this is one of the first times that we have a hero, or we have a character who has failure, 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 and realizes that maybe just trying to be good, trying to make good decisions, and keep trying no matter if you fail, is what is human. And for this to be written thousands of years ago means they figured it out pretty quick. Some of us still haven't figured out this lesson yet. So you're going to hold on to these pictures, put them with your oil writing from your conflict writing, because you get to use this on the test for the next unit.